seeing that it's it is 5:35. We're going to start our meeting. And to kick us off, first off, my name is Eileen Yazzie. I'm with Y2K Engineering. I'm working with the City County of Denver on the 5280 Trail Acoma Street project. In the next slide, we're going to kind of kick off the project and recognize any people that are needing Spanish, would like to listen in as Spanish language as a priority.
Hola, buenas tardes, bienvenidos a todos. Quiero decirle que si quieren escuchar esta junta en español, seleccione el botón de interpretación en la parte inferior de su pantalla y ahí podrían tener acceso de toda la presentación en español. Muchas gracias.
All right, and I just started the interpretation. And so the button on the bottom, as you can see on this slide, you can click there. If you're looking for Spanish only, you can go to the next slide, Jason. You can see kind of as well, this is other opportunities for input. So first off, we are recording this Zoom meeting. It's going to be available after this meeting today so that people that aren't able to attend can also participate and understand the project. You can post questions and your comments either in the chat, that's at the bottom, kind of again on that keypad for Zoom, as you can use the chat function or the question and answer function. Actually, yes, and they're both available. So we'll be doing question and answer and discussion towards the end of the project presentation as well with polls. Hopefully we'll find this fun and interactive and useful. We'll be doing, I believe, 6 polls throughout the presentation, so we can start gathering some information about the project. Next slide. Greg, I believe this is you.
Sorry. Yeah, I apologize. I seem to have lost the view of the presentation, but I'll just start off. Hopefully we're on slide 4.
We're on the agenda slide.
Oh, we are on the agenda slide, yeah. So first off, I just wanted to say good evening to everyone who's attending. This is really the first of 4 community meetings for the 5280 Trail Acoma Street segment design. My name is Greg Ciesick. I'm a community designer, landscape architect in the specialty services group within Dottie's transportation and implementation team. The team is really excited to bring this project to you, the Denver residents, as it's been a long process to get to where we are today. So our goal for tonight is to have you provide feedback and input on the future design for this project. Your input is extremely valuable to us and the team, and will help inform the decisions as we start the design process. So this is just really an important first step in making this a great project, not only for the Golden Triangle neighborhood, but for all of Denver. So I'd like to turn it over to Councilman Hines to provide a brief project introduction.
Thank you. My name is Chris Hines. I serve on Denver City Council representing District 10. So that's for auditory learners, visual learners. It's in my Zoom background. I'm really excited about this project. I know that when I was campaigning originally in 2018, the #1 concern that I heard from residents in Golden Triangle was the lack of a neighborhood park. Of course, fire engine is coming by right as I'm speaking. At any rate, so this is an opportunity to address that concern. I know that Civic Center Park is technically in the neighborhood of Golden Triangle, but it is so heavily activated with large festivals that residents of Golden Triangle don't always see that as the community's neighborhood park. So this was originally designed as an opportunity to take a look at addressing the concern for the neighborhood. But also, once I was elected, I took a survey of people in District 10 and about projects in the community. And this was the single highest #1 rated project. So people had more interest throughout District 10, not just Golden Triangle, in the 5280 Trail. And so I advocated for including this in the 2021 GEO bond, and made it into the transportation section 2C, and the people said yes. So this is a fabulous opportunity to have a fully funded first segment of the 5280 trail. My hope and goal is that this particular segment is so fabulous that every other segment of the 5280 trail will, or every other area of the 5280 trail will demand their segment. One comment, I happen to live on Acoma. Denver City Council reads a land acknowledgement at the beginning of every council meeting that we reside on the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. And we acknowledge that we're on stolen land. And I'm not going to read the entire acknowledgement here, but we identify that Acoma, as many locals call it, is actually originally an indigenous name. So I want to thank the presenters for using the indigenous pronunciation and calling it Acoma. So if that is confusing or new to people, hopefully that helps with some of the demystification behind calling it Acoma. Thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Oh, and I'm sorry, I have one other thing. This is a project that has been a part of adopted plans since 2007. So that means that this has been a conversation since well before 2007. And I've heard from residents and business owners in the Golden Triangle that we want to just build the trail already. There's one four-letter word that I'm omitting from that quote. But there certainly is a lot of interest in moving this project forward. And we're hoping that we have a baseline from those adopted plans, but hope and reality may not be the same. And so I think that's part of this discussion tonight is to make sure that if we start with a baseline, that everyone's on the same page. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Hines. So back to the slide, our agenda for tonight. So we'll start with the project team introductions, and then we'll provide a project overview. We'll review the Acoma Street vision and how we've kind of gotten to where we are today. We'll discuss designing for people and experiences, and then we'll briefly touch upon what we're calling the linked kind of sister project, which is the Sunken Gardens Connection Project. And then we'll go over future opportunities for community engagement. And then we'll finish with a question and answer period. So as Eileen had mentioned, also there'll be opportunities for input throughout the presentation with pop-up polls. Questions can be submitted in the chat. And then, as I said, we'll have the Q&A at the end of the presentation. So next slide. So onto the project team. As mentioned, my name is Greg Ciesick, and I am with the Dottie Transportation Implementation Team, and I'm the project manager for Dottie for Acoma Street. And then I'll let the rest of the team introduce themselves.
I am Jason Rutt. I am with Consor. I am the consultant project manager. I'm really excited to work on this project, excited to work with the team and all of you. Christian, do you want to jump in?
Sure thing. Thanks, Jason. Good evening, everyone. Christian Braco off with Consor, supporting the project as the transportation planning lead. And I'll pass it to Eileen.
Sure. I've introduced myself. My name is Eileen Yazzie. I'm with Y2K Engineering, supporting the team with engagement and communications. Matt?
Thanks, Eileen. I am Matt Shawalker with MIG, and we are supporting the team with urban design.
And I believe, I was going to say, I think the councilman has already introduced himself.
Yes.
So he's nodding his head yes. So we'll invite Ellen to introduce herself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Ellen Forthofer. I'm with the Downtown Denver Partnership and really excited to support this project on Acoma Street, as well as the study for the crossing of Spear Boulevard as part of the 5280 trail.
Great. Thanks, Ellen.
Hey,
now that you know, oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, now that you know a little bit more about the project team, are we going to do a pop-up poll?
We are.
Yes. Okay.
Got it. I'm glad you and I are both very excited for this. So right now, the first poll, we want to know, well, we've just shared who we are. we want to know a bit more about the people that are on the Zoom meeting. So we have, if you can click the button, are you a resident of the Golden Triangle, La Alma, Lincoln Park neighborhood? Do you own a business? Are you a manager or employee in the Golden Triangle or La Alma, Lincoln? Are you a resident of another area of Denver, and or are you another business owner in Denver? And also, if you're not able to click the buttons for the poll, you can always enter it in the Q&A and chat. You don't have to do both. All right, looks like we have a good mix of different people that are attending tonight. All right, I'm going to end the poll right now, and it looks as if, can I share the results? I think I can. Can you see that? Okay, fantastic. So yeah, we have about 40% from the Golden Triangle neighborhood. Thank you, Councilman Hines. And also, again, we have business owners, managers, employees, and other residents and business owners and employees throughout Denver. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Eileen. Next slide. Oh, we're on it. Okay. So we'll start with an overview of the Acoma Street project. Next slide. So the 5280 trail is envisioned as a 5.20 mile linear park around downtown Denver that includes links and places throughout different neighborhoods. On this graphic, the links are shown in a darker green and really connect the places that are shown, the places as we're calling them, that are shown in the light green. So Acoma Street is the one in the lower right section. And then it is one of the places that's part of this looped linear park that's dedicated for pedestrians, cyclists, and other non-car users to move safely in and around downtown. Next slide. Further expanding upon the 5280 trail. So the Acoma Street project is the 2-block segment from 12th Avenue south to 10th Ave. And it's shown on this graphic in purple. As Ellen mentioned, we're also partnering with the Downtown Denver Partnership to study alternatives to connect from Acoma Street to Sunken Gardens Park across Spear Boulevard. So that study area that we're working with right now is shown in blue on this graphic. And as many of you know, since the original visioning was done for the 5280, a lot's changed in the Golden Triangle neighborhood. There's a lot of new development, a lot of higher densities, a lot of taller buildings. I think based on this and what we've seen since then, we just wanted to take a deeper look at how best we can connect Acoma Street, the Acoma Street project over Spear Boulevard to Sunken Gardens. So ultimately, as part of the design process, this study will lead to a preferred alternative for connecting to Sunken Gardens Park from Acoma Street. Next slide. The Acoma Street design is really starting from that 5280 visioning that we've talked about, and specifically for these 2 blocks. So these blocks are envisioned to include a plaza community park space between 12th and 11th Avenues, and a shared pedestrian festival street between 11th and 10th Avenues. So in the visioning, both blocks would include enhanced hardscaping throughout, landscaping as well, lighting and other amenities to bring people to this area. So funding for the project is $7 million in funding from the Denver Rise Go Bond. And that $7 million will cover 100% design and construction of the project. So again, just a big thank you to you, the Denver community, for approving the bond. I think without you and Councilman Hines getting this project on the ballot, we wouldn't actually be here today talking about this project and moving forward with it. So thank you. Next slide. Project design schedule. You'll see both projects on this. So Acoma project is on the upper in purple, and then the Sunken Gardens connection project is on the below in green. So for the design, we are meeting tonight. So that first purple circle is our first community engagement, which is tonight's meeting, which is solely focused on Acoma Street. So once we're done with this, we'll take all of the feedback and input we get, and then we'll start our design development. We'll work towards 30% design plans later this year. And then the 90% and 100% design plans will be in mid to say fall of 2025. And then some additional opportunities for community engagement. We'll have another meeting later this year that will focus on the Sunken Gardens connection. So that's the one shown in green between quarter 4 of 2024 and then the start of 2025. So and then beyond that, we'll have 2 more engagement opportunities in 2025 where we'll be looking at both projects together. So we can make those as seamless as possible. So when we actually do arrive at the fall of 2025, we'll have 100% plans for Acoma. And then we'll also have the 10% plans for the Sunken Garden that we can use as a basis moving forward for that project. Next slide. So next we'll talk about the vision for Acoma Street. And I'll start off kind of high level. What I'd like for people to do is kind of focus on those upper bars. So, you know, the planning, as Councilman Hines said, really started back in 2007. I think it was really kind of brought to the forefront in 2014, 10 years ago with the Golden Triangle neighborhood plan, and then the subsequent 5280 trail vision plan and guidelines that were done in 2019. So all that led to us being able to secure funding in 2021 with the bond funding, which has kind of led us to where we are today, that blue circle. So I'll now hand it over to Ellen to talk a little bit more about the various plans that were developed as part of the 5280 trail that include Acoma Street.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. And I think just to Greg's points, as well as what Councilman Hines was sharing earlier, the 5280 trail is an envisioned linear park that connects 6 downtown and near downtown neighborhoods. And it's something that was born out of decades of community conversations and community and neighborhood planning efforts around these neighborhoods and within downtown Denver. As Council Hines mentioned, it was first called by name, the 5280 Trail, in a 2007 downtown area plan, but there were several other plans leading to the development of that, and specific to the Golden Triangle neighborhood. The Golden Triangle neighborhood plan called for a new neighborhood spine and a connection between neighborhood and museums and civic spaces. And that's what we saw in a lot of those neighborhood and community planning efforts were really similar recommendations calling to highlight the unique and special places in each of these 6 neighborhoods. And in 2019, the Downtown Denver Partnership helped to lead efforts within the community to elevate those community voices and really grow the impact of all of these special places, these pearls along the necklace of the 5280 trail, if you will, by connecting them and elevating the impact of each of those special places and unique places in these neighborhoods by making it easy to get to and from them and better navigate throughout downtown. So in 2019, the vision plan really outlined what that broader idea of the 5280 trail is, and the design guidelines dove into a little more detail in terms of materiality and outlining what this might look like in each of the neighborhood segments. Those planning efforts helped to support in 2021, as Councilman Hines and Greg both mentioned, the Go Bond Rise package that allowed for the $7 million for final design and construction funding of the Acoma Place segment of the 5280 trail. And today we are now starting the design process. So really looking to leverage all of the previous community conversations and these public process planning efforts to help us not have to start at square zero and instead build on those previous conversations as we begin the process for final design of what the place in Golden Triangle will look like. And so with that, I will now pass it off, I believe, to either Jason or Matt to talk more about that vision specific to the Golden Triangle neighborhood and how that relates to some of the questions we'll be asking tonight.
Thanks, Ellen. So as Ellen said, as we sort of transition from the planning process into design, we wanted to pause and take up just a minute to dive a little bit deeper into the 5280 trail vision that was established, in particular, obviously, for Acoma Street. So the sketch here and some of the words sort of hit at the larger key goals that were put forward in the vision plan. As a green extension of the art museum, seating and art opportunities, neighborhood park space, and sort of local expression and space for design and art. We go to the next slide and get a little bit more technical and detailed. The area in the red outline is the 2 blocks that we are moving forward with design for. And so you see in the dark green sort of rectangle at the top there between 12th and 11th Avenue, Flex Park right there. And then the southern block between the 11th and 10th Avenues labeled as sort of linear park and art canvas. And the next slide gives a little more detail into the vision for each of those. The vision sort of labeled them and named them as Gallery Park and a Canvas Block. So you see north is to the left on this slide. So the Gallery Park block there between 12th and 11th Avenues, pulling from the vision, talks about a green extension of the Art Museum Plaza and a central park space for the neighborhood, like Councilman Hines was mentioning. Above that, you can see the section's a little small, but there's a conceptual slice through the space. And I think critically what you see there is the trail and then increased green space for that sort of neighborhood park space. To the right, the southern block between 11th and 10th Avenues, the canvas block, is envisioned in the vision as basically expanded amenity zone, additional seating and art opportunities, a sort of platform for art and local expression. Critically, in the section above that, you see the trail in the red and green, and then bulb out, which is sort of expanded spaces for amenities, but you also still see the street.
Yeah, so I was just going to talk a little bit about the Go Rise bond and kind of the bond language that was part of that. So, and I'm going to be reading off of another screen because my eyesight's getting bad apparently. But the simplistic way that this is stated is just it's constructing a segment of an urban trail and pedestrian walkway in downtown Denver. So that is actually what people had voted on for this project. The companion ordinance was the 5280 trail development, and then some supplemental information about the project in the voter information guide and the project summary. So I'll just read those real quick. So voter information guide was constructing a segment of an urban trail and pedestrian walkway in downtown Denver. The project summary, this project will support development of a 2-block segment of the 5280 trail on Acoma from 10th to 12th Avenues. It will connect and provide safe passage between neighborhood destinations and open spaces, and also provide additional public space for arts, culture, and economic activation. So it's envisioned as a green extension of the Art Museum Plaza, providing the neighborhood with a central park space for recreation, relaxation, and community events. So this is kind of our starting point based on what the voters in Denver approved in terms of bond language. So I'll hand it back to Matt.
Hey, Greg, really quick.
Yes.
Can you remind everybody what was the dollar amount that was approved in the bond for?
$7 million.
And that's for the design
and construction.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Thank you for that clarification.
Great. Thanks, Eileen. Thanks, Greg. So with the bond and the 5280 trail vision, as our starting point for moving into design, we wanted to start by thinking about who are the people and experiences that will bring people to Acoma in the future as a basis for what the design and spaces should become. So we wanted to dive in a little bit, and we'll have a couple survey questions on this with you about who are those people. So across this drawing, you can see a little sort of cartoony sort of transect section of, on the left, you see the civic and cultural district, and on the right, you see the neighborhood. And Acoma, sits in an interesting sort of intersection, almost a stitch between the civic and cultural district on the north or the left with the art museum Civic Center Park, and all of the visitors those institutions attract, over 1 million annual visitors in the park, and even more so in all of those cultural destinations that bring so many people right to the edge of the Golden Triangle neighborhood and this place. And then, of course, the neighborhood itself, a growing neighborhood, with over 3,500 people in the 2022 census and growing quickly. A couple interesting, demographics. It's a fairly young neighborhood with an average age of 34, and the highest percentage of people working from home of all neighborhoods in Denver at 44%. So digging in a little deeper with that sort of numbers background, we wanted to think about who are the people in those areas, a little bit more about them, so we can think about what would bring them and encourage them to inhabit Acoma. And I think before we go any further on this, I think 2 statements. First of all, Acoma is and will be a public space, and so it needs to be welcoming to all citizens and people in Denver. And in addition, each of these little cartoons is meant to represent and sort of includes the full spectrum of people that make our city so great. People with multiple different backgrounds, orientations, races, genders, and abilities. So we want to make sure that this is an inclusive conversation, because I think when you look at this, it might feel a little bit like we're just highlighting these groups, but we sort of picked these because we think they are the most proximate based on geography and the most likely to be there, but we want to make sure this remains inclusive. So you can see across this who are the people. Broadly speaking, the visitors to the civic and cultural institutions include art and cultural enthusiasts, people visiting museums. Families are a big frequent visitor to all of the museums. People come from around the country to come to our great museums, so tourists and people attending events at Civic Center Park or in the museums. In the neighborhood, we've got a range of people living there, young families to single people or young couples, as well as empty nesters who are living in the apartments in the neighborhood. And then you also have workers in the neighborhood, people working from home. There are also commercial buildings, people working in the service industries. So you can see we sort of highlighted a few of them just to illustrate how we would try and use this way of thinking. So looking at under the neighbors, for example, a young family, that could be living in the neighborhood or visiting, one of the art museums. When might they be here? So weekdays, morning through the afternoon might be likely. Weekends, visiting museums. What might the priorities or experiences that would bring those people to Acoma? Play for their kids, eating, whether that's sitting down, at more like dining, or taking something to go and eating along the street, or just sitting and relaxing, or maybe coming to a market or event. I won't go through all of them, but just as an example of the way we want to use this sort of thinking and how it can inform the actual spaces and amenities that come later. With that, I think we do have a poll question. Is that right?
Yeah, we do. So thinking of what Matt just described and knowing that we're changing Acoma, and we want to design a place that's, again, a park, a connected, safe place that will be open to the public and connect through the area. So we want to hear your thoughts when we think of the future and changing that of Acoma. Is what groups of people do you think will use this future space the most? Families, couples, single people, empty nesters, tourists, event goers, art enthusiasts, people who work in the area, business travelers. So looking for your input, and you can choose 3, or we're asking for that.
Right. And I think we also mentioned the chat function too, right?
Yeah.
People put things in chat. So one question that accompanies this is, who are we missing, right? Because we don't.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
We probably could have put up dogs as a single category. There's a lot of dogs in Denver, it seems like, as I have one myself. All right, and just a little bit more time on that. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. see if I can make this a bit bigger. All right, so looking at that, we are seeing tourists that people on the Zoom meeting are seeing them being one of the larger user groups of this feature space. We have tourists or visitors, couples at 50%, art enthusiasts at 50% as well, single people, people who work in the area, event goers, and as well as with families. Right, thank you. And we are going to move forward, talking a bit more about experience. And I believe, Matt, back to you.
We'll continue, and we're going to come back to you with another question shortly here. So thinking about those people who think are most likely to sort of come and animate Acoma, we want to ask you what you think are the experiences and activities that might bring them there. We've got this in sort of organized in a couple different categories. The first group here, we're calling communal and programmed, meaning art installations, come and seeing small performances that might be in the space. 4 seasons simply means activities year round. We want to make sure winter is active and vibrant as well. Pop-up activities could mean food trucks or like a little pop-up library or other things, and markets could mean, farmers markets or street fairs or a whole bunch of those type of activities. The second category is more the spontaneous, there we go, spontaneous and daily activities, sort of unprogrammed, that might draw people into the space. So simply meeting friends, a little more informal, or dining along the space or the street, creative or different types of play. And that doesn't need to mean playgrounds in particular, just play for children or people of all ages coming down and working. Someone mentioned dogs. There's no doubt that there's a few dogs in the neighborhood. Recreation, and then relaxing. And again, that doesn't necessarily specifically mean in hammocks, but just coming down to relax, more of the activities. And with that, again, I think we've got another follow-up poll question for you.
Yes. All right. Let me launch this. So thinking of the information Matt just shared, and that's still on the slides, is, again, Acoma in the future is going to change. It's going to change from 12th to 10th. And so thinking about a future space and one that's public for the park and a shared street, a pathway, is what types of experiences would you like to see in this new space? And kind of going back to what Matt had said is spontaneous and daily, that's the current slide that's shown. And then there's also a bit more of that programmed and communal space.
And any additional ideas,
Right.
drop them in the chat.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. All right, and answers are still being, your preferences are still being clicked. Just a little bit more. All right, and it looks like voting has stopped, or preferences have stopped. I'll end the poll and share the results. All right, so a lot of people have noted their preference for outdoor dining, meeting friends, as well as dog friendly. And then you can see kind of in that 33 or a third or kind of a quarter of preferences that came in about small performances, program activities throughout the year, as well as games and recreation, relaxing, and temporary art installations and outdoor markets.
Eileen, can you scroll down on that real quick? I just want to, I see the creative play.
Yeah, sure.
You do, or I can scroll. I'll just say it popped up on my screen, and I can scroll. So
okay.
Do as well. Yeah.
In Zoom, yeah, I have it sharing yes. as a large, but yeah, I can scroll as well. Sorry about that.
Greg, you really need to get your eyes checked.
No, it's a Teams versus Zoom thing. I apologize. City uses Teams mostly, so I'm not used to Zoom as much. So.
All right, virtual meetings and technology at its finest. All right, I will stop sharing, and Matt, you can now talk a little bit more about the character that supports the experience.
Sounds good. This will be very quick. What you see here is sort of a spectrum from 1 to 10. across the bottom, and that'll be the question we ask you. But thinking about the people and then the experiences we just talked about, what sort of, ambiance and character do you think would best fit that and bring people to Acoma? So on the left, sort of at 1 is more, more wild, and then a spectrum towards, 10 being more paved, hardscape, and more sort of plaza-like. So I think that then you pop up the next question, which we'll just ask you to click a number that you think is right in that sort of spectrum.
Thanks, Matt. And also, while we're doing this poll, if we think of the connecting public spaces with the Art Museum Plaza and Civic Center Park, could you just kind of, for reference with this, how would you rate those 2 areas on this scale?
That was a question for you, Matt.
That was a question from, so to me, the plazas at the Art Museum are, they're basically very urban. They're mostly hardscape. There are trees in, sort of planters. So I'd put them more on the 10 spectrum personally. And
then what about Civic Center Park? While it's not wild, it definitely has a lot of green. I even know a few vegetable gardens. I really want to pick the basil there, but I never do. If I did, I probably wouldn't tell you anyhow. So what are your thoughts about how wild is that?
Yeah, I would think that's more right in the middle.
Okay.
A little bit, there's the picture of the second from the right there with the lawn and some hardscape. More towards the wild than that because it's mostly planted, but the picture representing wild is certainly a bit more sort of foresty, right, and organic. All
right. Thank you. Looks like preferences have stopped voting. I'm going to end the poll and share the results. A lot of people are trending more, I would say, below 6. Number 2 on the scale of character, 2, 3 and 4 have the most, but 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all close together. We had a couple people vote for 8 and 10. I think that certainly suggests, right, more of a greener, planted, right, kind of character. Yes. All right, moving forward, I'm going to stop sharing for now. Thank you. And before we transition, we appreciate that feedback. I think our next steps with that information is going to be, translating the feedback you've given us, what we're learning about, continue to learn about the users, those kinds of experiences and the character. And our next step will be back to you with actual drawings and visions for the space itself. So with that, I think.
Yeah, with that, I'm excited to share another component of the project that we're working on that we briefly alluded to earlier, and Greg shared the agenda. And then Ellen from the partnership is here, Downtown Denver Partnerships here, so I'll invite her to jump in and give a little bit of background in a moment. But our project team, in addition to looking at the initial segment of the 5280 trail along Acoma from 10th to 12th, is also evaluating opportunities to connect the trail over to Sunken Gardens Park on the other side of Spear. As you can see here, we're looking at a couple different potential crossing options and evaluating what might make the most sense, both from a kind of feasibility perspective and just an overall connectivity and space enhancement perspective, thinking ahead to when the 5280 trail is fully built out and kind of continues west of Spear. We want to make sure that we're leveraging the great asset that is Sunken Gardens Park and making that a critical piece of the overall project. So the project team's evaluating either an opportunity for a new crossing on 10th Avenue or leveraging the existing Bannock Street Bridge connecting from 9th Avenue or potentially a dedicated pedestrian bicycle crossing adjacent to that bridge. So we're looking through all the options right now and developing some alternatives that we'll bring forward later in the process as we shared, and we'll be interested to get community input. Following that input process, we'll be moving into some conceptual designs as well as cost estimates and setting that piece up for the next stage of the work. And Ellen, anything that you want to share on overall history of that effort?
Yeah, thanks, Christian. I think Just want to add a little bit of context. Again, I think part of the reason that the partnership felt it was very important to consider what the link across Spear Boulevard and the crossing into Sunken Gardens Park would look like in conjunction with the design effort for the bond-funded 2 blocks between 10th and 12th on Acoma Street, is that these projects really need to work well together, and they represent different aspects of the 5280 trail vision. The 2 blocks that are funded really represent a place, so more of that community gathering opportunity, and in some cases in the vision plan and design guidelines, broader footprint and full reimagining curb to curb of what that street can look and feel like to really honor the special and unique characteristics of those neighborhoods. But the links are very important as well and have that same cohesive design language. And so this effort, as Christian mentioned, getting us up to that conceptual design level, starting to think about cost estimates and understanding through community conversations what that preferred alternative is, it really sets the project up for success to quickly move forward and better connect this now upgraded, Pearl within the Golden Triangle neighborhood, this really important place and space in the community. And thinking long term, especially as we add more residents, more visitors, more people into this area, how can we create better access across some of those really difficult barriers and streets to cross in and out of the Golden Triangle neighborhood? So I'll just add in closing here, Sunken Gardens Park recently did go through a master planning process with the Department of Parks and Recreation at the city. I think many of you on this call were probably involved or at least aware of that process. Through that master plan process, the 5280 trail was reconfirmed as going through Sunken Gardens Park. So this really helps to fill a gap between the funded segment on Acoma and the reconfirmed segment as part of that master plan to help as a community envision what that best alignment is and what's going to be kind of the best future implementation opportunity for the 5280 trail.
Thanks, Ellen. With that, I'll hand it back to Eileen to share some upcoming engagement opportunities that we'll have in the future.
Yeah, sure. One of the things is we aren't done talking and getting input and getting the community members' thoughts on the design part of this project. As noted earlier, the project will continue through the remainder of this year and continue in the future. And as for now, we have still 2 opportunities. So I want to say, go ahead, shout it out with your neighbors. Let your neighbors know, businesses. We have flyers if you need them. We will be on the street at 12th and Acoma. We'll be kind of posting up there from 11 to 1 and 4 to 6 next Tuesday on August 13th. We'll be having and hosting similar conversations. Also, too, we'll be there if we need to kind of, walk the street and walk Acoma and answer questions. We'll have all of our teammates there as well. For those very similar that can't make it to this meeting or can't stop by, don't have the opportunity, we'll also have an online survey. It's already active, and that will be through the end of the month. We're asking very similar questions to the polling questions we asked today. So those are opportunities that we'll be continuing to work with the community and engage on. And so
Great.
now, yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Eileen. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say it's we're here to answer any questions and answers. We have a couple. Christian, he's been monitoring the question and answer area. Christian, do you see any questions and answers that are answers? Do you see any questions that are popping up that we can talk through?
Well, we have 2 questions so far, both related to the Sunken Gardens connection. So I can I'll read those out loud one at a time, and then I think Ellen and I could potentially tag team on those, but I can get us started. So the first is a question on what sort of metrics we're going to be looking at when we rate the alternatives for the Spear crossing. So I can share at a high level. We're continuing to refine our evaluation criteria. So this isn't completely nailed down yet, but some initial metrics that we're considering include cost, right-of-way conflicts, just wanting to confirm that the any sort of space that's needed to either construct a new connection or enhance an existing connection is something that the kind of land that the city has either available or can get an easement on. So that's something that we're considering. Looking at traffic operations and just making sure that we're meeting the needs of existing vehicular users, pedestrians, bicyclists. There's a transit connection over the Bannock Street Bridge. That's also something we need to consider. And then we'll be looking at things like utility impacts, drainage, and then more kind of qualitative things like comfort assessment. How easy is it to navigate to the Cherry Creek Trail? We want to be mindful of that other kind of regional trail connection that we need to be sort of connecting to through the 5280 project. So those are some of the initial criteria that we're evaluating. And Ellen, you might have some thoughts to share as well.
Yeah, I'll just add as well, and again, want to underscore to Christian's point, still confirming exactly all of what those criteria are. But another that I think is really important to mention is just considering how well the initial vision outlined in both the vision plan and design guidelines from those community conversations could be met. So how can we really prioritize people walking and biking and making a safe connection between the Golden Triangle neighborhood and Sunken Gardens Park, as well as other neighborhoods in downtown? How well does it meet those kind of core vision tenets of the 5280 trail as outlined in the vision plan and design guidelines? I think is a really important element. And I see Councilman Hines wants to share something as well.
I realized my microphone was slightly out of the way. You were talking about some of the core tenets and vision. Sunken Gardens, for those who participated in the planning process for the gardens, and for many of us who've been in Colorado and Denver for a while, that was the national center of the Chicano rights movement, and so some of the vision is that we are able to get access for the people on the other side of Spear to see part of see Sunken Gardens and enjoy some of that history. It's also a value statement for City Council and the city that equity is a large component too. So when we're thinking about overarching values, we want to make sure that the people in Sunken Gardens or in Lama Lincoln Park have access to work and food and tourism in the center city using a safe non-car connection. And so that's part of why the connection is important too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question we have is, will the analysis also look at what side of the street the trail would go on 10th or 9th Avenues, or any design elements, pavers, trees, etc.? So I think a component of that question, if I'm interpreting it correctly, is about the 5280 trail, and then it's also I think asking about what the connection south to over to Sunken Gardens might look like. I think kind of start at a high level and then invite other project team members to jump in. I know for the fully designed portion of the 5280 trail in Acoma, we'll certainly make a lot of those decisions as we move into final design, so that the project can then move forward into construction. For the connection over to Sunken Gardens, we'll be assessing different options for surface types and things like that. So that level of detail likely won't emerge from the Sunken Gardens connection element of the project, but aspects like what side of the street, for instance, a high comfort bicycle connection over from the trail to the Sunken Cherry Creek crossing over to Sunken Gardens might look like, we would be kind of getting into that level of detail of assessing what side of the street is going to be most advantageous for making sure all users are able to kind of safely and comfortably connect.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. I think a lot of initial ideas around kind of materiality and whatnot were outlined in the design guidelines. And so as the first segment to enter final design for the 2 blocks of Acoma, I think in that effort, to Christian's point, a lot of those ideas will be confirmed throughout the process. That then sets the tone for other links and places in other segments along the 5280 trail. But specific to the alternatives analysis for that crossing of Spear, we will be looking at things like what side of the road, if it is on a side of the road, or if it's a center alignment with, vehicle traffic on either side. Part of what Christian was mentioning earlier, just with some of those criteria and metrics to look at, will be how can we make this as comfortable of a crossing to align with the vision of a linear park connection. It should really be cohesive and connect into that place, as well as the place of Sunken Gardens. A lot to Councilman Hines' point. Those are 2 really important places to connect. And so we'll be looking at just starting to dig into some of the specifics of how we can best connect them, but we won't be going past kind of those initial concept ideas, but we will be identifying a preferred alternative coming from that conceptual analysis.
Ellen? Our next question is, does the construction budget include the intersections 12th, 11th, and 10th? Greg, I think I'll invite you to kind of start and answer there, and then perhaps hand it off to any other member of the project team who you think might be able to chime in.
Yeah, it does. We're actually looking at the crossings. We've even kind of discussed, could they be a raised intersection to help, kind of define that this is a different place from just a normal street. So it's something we've just started to look at initially as part of the project. But yes, we are including the crossings of 11th and 12th. And Jason, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, but
Yeah, I mean, I think the only other thing I would add is I think we're prioritizing pedestrians at those crossings and making sure that we have that in mind at all of those, and traffic calming. So those will be definitely part of the design and whatever we develop.
All right, and then we have one more question in the chat. How or in the Q&A rather, how will the project work with above curb right away and the adjacent landowners and developers? Just to kind of start us off, and then I'll hand this one to Greg as well. But we will need to look into some temporary construction easements. So that's something that the city will handle through the real estate team, and the project team is starting to assess where those might be needed, so we can start that process. Greg, there might be more to add on that topic.
yeah, are they specifically talking about the potential future developments that are happening?
I am not totally sure, but it's possible.
So, I mean, obviously we would work with any developments that are being submitted right now. I know the community planning and design group, when they do get developments that are submitted for this, that they're taking into consideration that this is a place and it's part of the 5280 trail.
Right. And so, Greg, I was also speaking with mute on, I think, but exactly what you're saying. So we do have, I think a lot of the most recent information on, if you look at the slide right now, the parking lot on the left side has a site development plan approved for a mixed-use building. As I know there's development progressing on the parking lot on the right too. So we do have all of that in our information, and we'll certainly be wanting to coordinate, what happens in the street with what's happening adjacent to it, because that's fundamental to making a vibrant and good public space.
Councilman Hines, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, I'd also say Golden Triangle has an urban design committee headed by Chris Brizo and Andrew Iltis, and those often review development projects that are considering going through the process in Golden Triangle. And I know that for at least since 2021, probably sooner, but 2021 is when the bond funding was passed. That there were several, most of the projects were asked about the 5280 trail going in, and I know I asked some of those questions personally, but I don't think I was the only one asking. So in addition to making sure that we proactively reach out to some of the current owners of property, we're also talking with organizations, developers that are considering potential development and how they can integrate with the trail too. Thanks.
Thank you.
And it looks like that's all we have in the Q&A. Oh, here we go. There's one more question coming in. I understand that there are not a lot of families in Golden Triangle right now. That's one of the reasons is there is a lack of quality park space. How will the design attract family, also acknowledging the school groups?
I think that's a great question. And, we acknowledge, right, as you said, right now there's not a ton of families in the neighborhood, but part of what we want to think about through this process is, in addition to who is there now and what's the makeup of the neighborhood now, what does it want to be in the future, right? And we want to bring more families to live in the city and live in this neighborhood. So I think that park space that could be created or will be created on Acoma is, I think, as you were suggesting, sort of a key amenity that will make this more family friendly. So as we move forward, we do want to think about that. What are the experiences, the places, the spaces, the amenities that would make this a great place to live with a young family?
And Councilman Hines has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So 3 other quick data points. The Public Library, Central Library, is wanting to put a significant playground on the north side of the Central Library's property. So basically next to Civic Center, which the library and the art museum already have lots of children attending, but that hopefully will draw additional children. So that's data point number 1. Number 2, there's one developer in Golden Triangle that has $1 billion investment in the neighborhood, and they are being intentional about providing a diverse stock of housing. And so they've talked about that they don't have family-centric units now, and but that's part of the plan in the future, is to have additional kind of 2 and 3 bedroom units so that they have a diverse offering of product in Golden Triangle. And then point number 3 is I see kids playing all the time, all of those cows. And part of me thinks, is that legal or safe? But I don't know. I've never seen anyone get hurt by it. So, but just as I was scratching my head, it seems like families look for something else to do, and they look south and they don't really see anything. So I think this is an opportunity to think about families and think about what we want the experience in Golden Triangle to be. And so I think there are a few data points that kind of certainly the way it is now is there aren't a lot of families, but this is an opportunity to rethink that.
Thank you. And I'm also just kind of checking the chat, and the chat right now, we don't necessarily have questions. A couple comments have come in, and there are no more questions in the Q&A. So Greg and Jason, seeing that there's no more questions, the next slide is kind of closing. I think a few of us will stay on, recognizing that the meeting was supposed to run until 7 o'clock. So if there's maybe a late joiner, one of us will be here in case someone does join very late. On that, Craig, anything else?
Yeah, I really just wanted to thank everybody for coming out and spending your time to just hear about this project and share your thoughts on it, the importance of the project. Again, I just wanted to remind everybody that the survey is up and live on the website right now. So please feel free to go there and take the survey. Definitely let your friends, family, neighbors know, especially if you're in the Golden Triangle area, to know about the survey, because I think the more information that we can get from people, the better informed our design is going to be. And then, that'll just make for a better project. So again, I just thank you everyone for attending tonight. And again, also feel free to, if you need to reach out to anybody, you can send in questions, information my way. There's my email address is up on the website and on the screen now. And then yeah, just thank you everyone for coming out and taking an interest in this project. I think it's going to be a great project moving forward. So
remember our event on Tuesday.
And yes, and then we also do have the event on Tuesday. So come out between 11 and 1, and then we'll be out there again from 4 to 6 just to take more input from folks. And if those folks want to walk the site, we're more than happy to do that with them as well. So
On that note, sorry, just one other thing I'll share. A community partner, Denver Infill, is leading a walking tour of the full footprint of the 5280 trail on Saturday the 17th. So please join us to talk specifically about the Golden Triangle Acoma segment. But figure if you're at this meeting, you might also be interested in connecting with other community partners interested in this work. So there's a walking tour on the 17th.
And just to let everybody else know too, we'll be posting the information that we collect from this meeting on the project website. It'll obviously take a few days to get that up, but yes, we will be posting that to the website. And I guess that concludes our presentation. As Elaine said, we'll stay on and take any questions, or just if anybody has a question they want to reach out to the project team with, we're more than happy to do that. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.